text whether you are able to hear. Okay.
Chapter number 30.
30.
30, 20 to 30. Okay.
31, 20.
దొరికింది లైబ్రరీ సింగల్ సెక్షన్ ఇచ్చారు సెక్షన్ క్లియర్ చేసి చాలా సెక్షన్
Jai.
Spiritual master, only way which we can feel Baba is spirit management and transformation which is so consciousness purified by one emanating from the lotus mouth. Transformed to the lotus feet in the perfection of the Buddha. He opens my dark eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. Even though I don't have words. This is the story. Picture sing of his cat. Spiritual master of the ocean mercy. Friend in the pool and the garden master of the deep.
It's not right. Here, you fix it. You fix it. Jaya Rama Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Hiravanam Chadi Jamuna Hiravanam Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Harivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi. I've been intending to have something of a theme as this weekend proceeds. A life of devotion and service to His Divine Grace. That's where we started, and we're still there. once we've begun devotional service, to carry on devotional service for your lifetime, or for our lifetime, there must be progress, or saying it negatively, Prabhupada expressed, in Krishna consciousness you're either progressing or regressing. There's no stagnation. Bhakti is dynamic, not static. So, something like the theme that we twice discussed during a Gita Nagari retreat, acceptance and progress. Acceptance and progress. So, here's where I am, and I want to move. So we've begun devotional service by the mercy of our founder Acharya in many, many different ways. And here we are, finding ourselves in Abhas Bhakti. We read some verses. You can refer to it again if you like. 6:1-15, Bhagavatam, where Abhas Rupa Bhakti is described with some detail. So there's stages, it's not just one thing. But Abhas means shadow, or reflection. Or we also heard the term from that purport, twilight. Before the sun rises, there's a muhurta. It's twilight muhurta. And twilight. It's neither dark of night nor full brightness of day. Before the sun rises, twilight. So that's where we are, and it's a long 48 minutes to go from Abhas to Shuddha. So there has to be a hankering, this same message repeating from before, a yearning, enthusiasm, and spontaneous, so it's progressive steps will help you. It's essential, in fact, to make this transition. Caution, we're not impersonalists. Impersonalists or voidists want to make that which is troubling zero. And what's troubling is desire, so make desire zero. Whether you call it this or that, impersonalism or voidism, it's take a dagger and kill the soul. Or at least notionally anesthetize the soul so there's no desire. Because desire, from the voidist point of view, desire is the root cause of suffering, or the impersonal point of view, as long as you have desire, then you have two things, a living entity, Brahman, and something other than Brahman. And you can't have that, because then you have two things. So you anesthetize the soul, at least philosophically. You can't. Because in Prabhupada's words, desire is concomitant with the soul. It's a nice language. Concomitant with, or it's of the soul. You can't have a soul and no desire. You can't have sun without sunlight. And so the problem is not desire. The problem is misdirected desire. And we're in that Abhas stage where even the sense of light is a reflection of light, because we're still in that twilight stage. Or shadow of an object, or reflection of an object. That's the Abhas stage. So this is a big topic. It's our life. So how you cover our life in half an hour? I thought just to focus on one thing, this Asat Trishna, and to move it to Sat Trishna. Trishna means, one translation of the word Trishna is thirst. So thirst for the impermanent. Trishna can also mean hankering. So this, say yes to Shuddha Bhakti that's the yearning part. Trishna, yearning. Or thirst. Jitendra, he's trying to be, socially distanced. So you're moving, and he's off the bench. Thank you. A little more. We're just being careful. I mean, we don't want anybody to have a problem unnecessarily. So we're being careful, being cautious. Keep within the speed limit and all those other things. Keep both hands on the wheel. Don't text message while you're driving. Just take precaution. Okay, so we want to move asat to sat. From Bhagavad Gita. Nasate vijite bhavo na bhavo vijite sataha. The Tattvadarshis, those who see the truth, they let go of the asat and they invest in sat. So this asat Trishna finds its way into Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing in many places, but one of them, important one, is in Harinam Chintamani, speaking about the chanting of the holy name, and he indicates that the anarthas, under the Anartha Nivritti section of that book, anarthas arise from three sources, and this is one of them. Asat Trishna. So there's two others, I'll mention them, but we're going to just try to focus a little bit on Asat Trishna and moving it to Sat Trishna. The other two are Hridaya Dorbalya. Hridaya Dorbalya. Bala means strength and Dorbalya means weakness. No, not much strength. Weakness of heart. When we know what to do, but we don't do. That word Hridaya Dorbalya comes from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna speaks to Arjuna. How is this Hridaya Dorbalya come over you? Where's this weakness of heart coming from? Weakness of heart. You know what to do, but you're not prepared to do what you know is to be done. You're asking what is duty? So, aparad is the other. That's the really big one. Just quick. Aparad is related to this Asat Trishna, but it's another dimension of it. It's, you look carefully at the offenses against the chanting of the holy name, and you'll find that the essence of each of the 10 offenses is that which is spiritual, seeing it not as spiritual, or seeing it through a material lens, relating to that which is spiritual as if it's not. So that's an offense to spiritual, or to the name, or to Krishna, and to ourselves, because we're also, and other living beings. So yesterday evening, for those of you that may not have attended, we heard Bhaktivinoda Thakur expressing from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami's writing, what is this Shubhatva, the quality of auspiciousness? Because we know from Nectar Devotion, Chapter 1, it's one of the 6 qualities of bhakti. And that auspiciousness, Rupa Goswami identifies some of those auspiciousnesses, and it's built into our topic. The topic last night was qualities, human qualities, but the human qualities are when they're sat, they're sustainable, or they don't come and go. That which comes and goes, that's illusion. And that which is permanent is the opposite of illusion, it's reality. So to be attached to reality, Sat Trishna, is where we want to go. If we want to go to Shuddha Bhakti, we have to go to the spiritual dimension. And it's not notional, it's practical. It can be exhibited on a observable, measurable, external, not just notional platform. So here's Rupa Goswami's introduction to devotional service in practice, sadhana bhakti. That's where we are. We'll start with just the basic principle. He refers to a verse from Canto 7, Chapter 1, verse 32. This phrase that you see on the screen, Tasmat kenapi upayena mana krishne naveshayet. And the context of that statement is Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking Narada Muni, in the presence of Krishna, how is it that Shishupal got liberation? He was a bad guy. And liberation is very rare. Even great personalities, it's lifetimes, and it's still, they don't reach it. Shishupal's a bad guy. He got liberation. How did he get liberation? Please explain. And this is part of the explanation. He achieved liberation because he was always fixed in his thought about Krishna. He was a bad guy. But bad guys can think, that's not bhakti. He wasn't a bhakta Shishupal. He was a demon, a flaming demon. He hated Krishna with a passion. But he was always thinking of Krishna. So therefore this phrase is there, spoken by Narada. Somehow or other, one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. That's Prabhupada's translation. So notice, Manak Krishne Naveshayet. Remember that phrase because it's going to show up in 2 more slides. Manak Krishne Naveshayet, somehow or other. Consider the form of Krishna very seriously. A similar principle, this is the mind now. We've heard this verse many times from Padma Purana. Smartavya satatam vishnur vismartavyo na jatuchit. And then this last line, we'll see it again. Sarve vidhi nishedha syur etayor eva kinkara. So kinkara means a servant. This principle, all vidhis and nishedhas, all rules and injunctions and prohibitions, nishedhas, that what you're to do, that what you're not to do, they have this one principle. It's nectar devotion. 64 items of bhakti, they have one purpose. What's that one purpose? This one. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All vidhis and nishedhas, they're servants, kinkaras, of this one principle, or these 2 principles. Always remember, never forget. And interestingly, Prabhupada created a new sloka. And we've heard this before too. Yena tena pakarina. Look at this. Mana Krishna naveshayat. Sarve vidi nisheda syur etayor vikinkara. Hey, we saw that one too. But this yena tena pakarina, it's not from the Puranas. It's Prabhupada. And he consistently used it. Yena tena pakarina. One must, somehow or another, think of Krishna. Mana Krishna naveshayat. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of this principle. Okay, so it's not a new idea. Manmana bhava mad bhakto, the mind goes to Krishna. What prevents the mind to go to Krishna if the mind goes to the temporary, or that which deludes one into not being conscious of Krishna? We want to awaken your Krishna consciousness. You have to go to the Krishna position. And so Asat Trishna, you have to let go. And you replace it with Krishna Trishna, or Sat Trishna. The Asat Trishna is uprooted by Harikatha. So the topic is how to go from Abhas to Shuddha. And if you remember, I'm sure you remember, one of the verses that we discussed yesterday morning was Lord Brahma's prayer. 14, chapter 14, text 3. Jnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartan. That's the same, this Harikatha message, or Bhagavad Dharma message, or Shravanam Kirtanam message. That's how bhakti is awakened, and when as bhakti is awakened, the Asat Trishna is slackened. It is not a mechanical process. It's not by mechanical chanting or mechanical anything. Ring a bell and wave some incense sticks, and you lose your thirst for the temporary. It doesn't work like that. The bhakti principle is assisted by the regulations in the vidhis, but the essence is not the vidhi. The essence is Krishna is to be pleased. Here's a nice verse that you may recognize. Nirvrita Tireshire, Upagiyamanad, Bhavoshadat Shotramano Biramat. So this, I'm mentioning this, you see, Tireshire is in different color. And Prabhupada explains that this Tireshire has the same dhatu or verbal root as Trishna. And so the import is the same. The translation has to do with the context of the sentence, but it's released from material hankerings. Trishna, hankering. Asat Trishna, material hankerings. Released from material hankerings. Nivritta Tireshire. Here's the translation. Hearing glorification of the qualities of the famous Lord, because Uttama Shloka is the next line, sung profusely by liberated souls, Sanmukaritam, is done by persons desiring relief from material suffering. So it can be, you want relief from material suffering, but you're not going to get relief from material suffering without getting relief from material hankering. Or say it the other way. As long as there's material hankering, you'll get material suffering. That's Buddha. Get rid of get rid of desire. Become a stone. Or just go out of existence. Take your pick. But then you don't suffer. But that's not the Bhagavad Purana message or Bhagavad Dharma message. It's become that desire gets focused on Krishna, the pleasure of Krishna. And then Manobi Ramat, those persons desiring pleasure for the ear and the mind. That's spiritual pleasure. That's Sat Trishna. And you can get free from Asat Trishna. That's the method. To go from Abhas Bhakti to Shuddha Bhakti. It has everything to do with sound and one's affinity for that sound, and drinking the sound through the ear and nourishing the attraction of the soul for the personality of Godhead. Now, I mentioned this the other day, and we're touching on it again. Some of you who have read Prabhupada's books are familiar with this phrase, then devotional service begins. There's a series of things, and then devotional service begins. So, what does that mean? What are we doing? Are we not doing devotional service? But it's related to, that phrase is related to the Brahmabhuta Prasanatma verse. And it's on the topic of moving from Abhas Bhakti to Shuddha Bhakti. So, Shuddha Bhakti is Shuddha. It's not mixed. But we're in the mixed. We're in the Abhas stage. We're not fully experiencing the name. We're not fully experiencing the deity form. We're not fully experiencing the sound of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not delighting the heart as it is when Shuddha is there. So we're in the mixed stage, or still in the bodily conception of life, according to this verse. So the Brahmabhuta verse, Brahmabhuta means to understand, self-realization, to understand you're the soul. There's more to understanding who you are than just I'm a soul, but that's preliminary. It's preliminary knowledge. And it's not just theoretical, but Brahmabhuta has 3 symptoms. Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma, and we're going to cover these. To go from Abhas Bhakti to Shuddha Bhakti, specific to the Asat Trishna, there has to be a practical, not just notional conception that you're not the body. Practical, not just notional. Because we'll all agree, take your Bhakti Shastri exam and check the box. We'll all check the box. But how much are we functioning on that platform? And so Shuddha is to function on that platform. And then devotional service begins. So Prasanatma, then look at this. Na sochati, na kangsati. The sochati is very similar to Trishna. It's a hankering. That's the translation. Hankering and lamenting. That's the material business. That's the material platform. When you're beyond the material platform, no more hankering, no more lamenting. What's that like? We'll have to wait. Or we can cultivate it. And we cultivate it by a spiritual conception of who we are, and then in practical terms. And then the next one, Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu, and from the list that we read yesterday evening, this is now the reference is Sadhana Bhakti, explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, says this is one of the shubhas that arises from bhakti. It's one of the auspicious qualities. It's a quality. And it's of the soul. It's already of the soul. It's in the soul. It awakens. And in this Brahmabhuta stage, it's fully manifest. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. People do bad things. The news is filled with people doing bad things. We don't have to list them. There's a lot of bad things. Shows that this verse from chapter 30, text 20, is spoken. So I'm going to read the verse and the purport so we can understand Brahmabhuta better, in addition to the Bhagavad Gita verse that uses that term. So the reference is Lord Vishnu speaking to the Prachetas, which is pretty fascinating. There they are underwater, standing with folded hands, looking up, and underwater there's Vishnu standing on the back of Garuda with more than 4 hands. Its description is there. And here's what he says about Brahmabhuta to the Prachetas. Always engaging in the activities of devotional service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. Somebody asked yesterday, how do I know whether I'm chanting or I'm doing mechanical devotional service or not? Here's one. The all-knower, the supersoul within the heart of the devotee, makes everything increasingly fresh. This is known as the Brahman position by the advocates of the absolute truth. In such a liberated stage, Brahmabhuta, one is never bewildered. Good luck, right? Nor does one lament or become unnecessarily jubilant. There we go. The Sochati Nakangsati. Here, Sochati is used, that's lamenting, and Rishyanti, jubilant. That's on the material platform. This is due to the Brahmabhuta situation. And I'm going to read the purport. A devotee is inspired by the supersoul within the heart to advance in devotional service in a variety of ways. The devotee does not feel hackneyed or stereotyped, nor does he feel that he is in a stagnant position. Sometimes we hear devotees say that, feel I'm not progressing. In the material world, if one engages in chanting a material name, he will feel tired after chanting a few times. However, one can chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra all day and night and never feel tired. So there. As chanting is increased, it will come out new and fresh. Srila Rupa Goswami said that if he could somehow get millions of ears and tongues, then he could relish spiritual bliss by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. There is really nothing uninspiring for a highly advanced devotee. The focus so far in the purport is that it's newer happiness. Then he quotes 10:10 Bhagavad Gita. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upiyanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So now, this connects to, that's 2.41, is where Buddhi Yoga is also spoken of. Buddhi, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. So here's a nice image. This is a self-realized soul. He's radiating something. You know, the soul's presence, which is luminous, like the sun, and very powerful, and it moves the body of an elephant, it moves the body of an ant, it moves the body of a human, it brings consciousness, it brings everything, it brings life. And knowing that your life, not the covering of life, the body, gross or subtle, that's the Brahmabhuta stage. And I've been mentioning, so here's Prabhupada's reference from 241 Bhagavad Gita, the Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam message. Krishna says in that verse that I've described Sankhya, now I'm going to describe Buddhi. And Buddhi is where the Ekeha Krudanandana. So the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. Now that's not how we're used to hearing Prabhupada say the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is. And if you had to, had a Bhakti Shastri exam and you fill in the blank, and you put in renunciation of the material conception of life, you might get an F in your exam. Because normally we say, no, that's limited. There's much more than renunciation of the material. But you have to have the foundation to build the house. You can't have Krishna consciousness, you can't have Shuddha Bhakti without renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. We discussed this yesterday. Automatically doesn't mean mechanically. Automatically means the unfolding of, Nityapriya, please send me a reminder to send to you this Burijan's essay on automatically doesn't mean mechanically. It means in natural sequence. So bhakti, in natural sequence, in organic, as opposed to machine-like sequence, this stage of renunciation of the material conception of life is achieved. But we strive for it. We don't just sit back and wait for it to happen. It arises from a desire to please Krishna. And in that same purport, the whole process depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically, where there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. Now, there is always a chance because we can misuse our free will, but when it's so strong, it's irrevocable, that's the Brahmabhuta stage. So we have to strive for that Brahmabhuta stage through Krishna consciousness. Same message, spoken differently as last night. Cultivating the qualities of a devotee, cultivating the qualities of a human being, it rests upon bhakti, and it's support for bhakti. So going beyond the bodily conception isn't just, well, I'll just chant Hare Krishna for 40 years, or 50 years, or 80 years, or several lifetimes, and it's going to happen. I'll achieve Shuddha Bhakti. It's not mechanical. If one continues making offenses, it's not going to happen. And if one continues affinity for the temporary, it's not going to happen. You won't become self-realized, and you won't become Krishna conscious. There has to be relinquishing of the temporary, of affinity for the temporary. Abhinivesh, if you remember that term. Abhinivesh. Affinity for, absorption in. Vayam dutiyam abhiniveshitak syat. That abhinivesh. You have to let go. Like Bhakti Siddhanta's example, rowing a boat but leaving the anchor down. It's work, but if you leave the anchor down, you're not going to progress. You have to pull the anchor and row the boat. You have to let go and move towards Krishna. There's an effort to pull the anchor. There's an effort to let go. Its strength comes, intelligence comes, and everything comes from Krishna to let go. But you have to let go. There has to be a willingness to move from abhas to shuddha. There has to be a desire. Or in language of Rupa Goswami, it's hankering, or even stronger, greed. That's pretty strong hankering. And then from who we are comes, then there's this more confidential, there's the form of the Supreme Lord within us. And He'll give us the intelligence, strength, and ability to move forward. But that's the dependent position. So now we're going to just go through these terms quickly. In the prasanatma, so Brahmabhuta, prasana, the symptoms, prasanatma, This is quoted in the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada says this is in Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, and I searched and I couldn't find it in Bhakti Sandarbha, in word search, in different translations. It's just a comment, but here's what it means. Bhajaniya paramam purusha sukha matra sva sukhatvam. There's this sukhatvam, sukhatvam, the quality of happiness. This is spiritual happiness as opposed to sukha dukkha. It's spiritual happiness. One should feel happy. That's a desire, right? I mean, you're a living entity and you're alive and you're conscious and you have desire to be happy. You don't anesthetize that one. But the happiness, one should feel happy only in experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. You'll find that in 2.3.10 Bhagavatam, those of you that take notes. 2.3.10 Bhagavatam. This is, and that's chapter 3, that's devotional service, change of heart. This is it. That Krishna should be pleased. That's the heart of bhakti, isn't it? Krishna should be pleased. With that intention. And as that intention awakens and becomes stronger and stronger, then you move from abhas to shuddha. It means that the things that are impediments, you let go. If you remain attached to impediments, you won't progress. If you let go of the impediments that will help you have the strength and clarity and everything you need, buddhi, to go to Krishna exclusively. That's Shuddha Bhakti. That's the prasanatma nasochati nakangsati. Here's from the first verse of Narada Bhakti Sutra. A pure devotee is indifferent toward what stands in the way of the Lord's service. Wait a minute. I want to go to the temple and someone's blocking the door. Or something. There's an impediment. So if something stands in the way of the Lord's service will overcome that something that's standing in the way. Isn't it? That's what Bhagavatam says. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yada Haitukam. Haitukam, there's no causeless devotional service. There's no obstacle. That's not even the right verse. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir hoksuje. Ahaitukiya pratyata yatma suprasidati. Yes? Apratyata. So, there's no material obstacle. And if there is an obstacle, then the devotee who encounters some hindrance or obstacle to their service to Krishna, they pray to Krishna to please remove it or help in the process of removing the obstacle. Most of the obstacles, they're inside. And the ones that are outside are just to prompt it or to show us that there's something inside, usually. No, it doesn't mean that anyway, if somebody does something horrible, it doesn't mean that's because I've got something bad inside, and it's just, to help me understand I've got something bad inside. So something horrible is something horrible. We recognize it's horrible. But it's not an obstacle to bhakti. And we pray to Krishna. And the example that's given in Narada Bhakti Sutra is Quinkwanti. Obstacles, she prays to Krishna to remove the obstacle. In her case, the obstacle was attachment to her family. Undue attachment to her family. And here's the last slide. You've seen this slide before. But the idea is in bhakti is to stay at the heart of bhakti. So what's the heart of bhakti? Because bhakti means to please Krishna. So the verse, this is this Anyabhilasha Shunyam. The letters are very small. Jnana karma janavratam anukulyena anushilanam. Yes, anushilanam. Anushilanam. Anu means to follow. Shila means conduct or behavior. You follow the conduct of the perfected souls, or the 9 processes of bhakti. We learn the 9 processes of bhakti from the exemplary personalities. And Krishna, he is the object of our attention and service. And at the very heart is this anukulyena. Anukulyena. To accept things favorable, but that is the intent to please Krishna. And the intent to please Krishna will help us, as we heard, to know who we are, to know our identity on the spiritual plane beyond the material. It's anukulyena at the heart. And that's it. So we want to stay at the heart of bhakti. We follow on that outer heart. There's the 9 processes, but that's not at the heart of bhakti. It's bhakti limbs, but at the heart of bhakti, there's Krishna is the object of bhakti, and then there's acting for his pleasure, and cultivating that always can carry us to the Brahmabhuta stage, because now it says, then bhakti begins. But then bhakti begins means we're in the practicing stage, and then there's the Shuddha stage. That's where bhakti begins. It's beyond the practicing stage, beyond the mix stage, beyond the abhas stage, where we can actually taste the name, we can actually feel the presence of Krishna, even in troubling circumstances. And when one attains that stage, then you're prasanatma and nasochati, nakangsati. We follow in the footsteps of our founder Acharya, thoughtfully, mindfully, devotionally, and we'll progress. Now, it's a big topic, as I said at the beginning, so this isn't like a comprehensive picture of abhas to Shuddhanam. It's specific to the Asat Krishna aspect, or working towards a spiritual conception of who we are and what our activities of bhakti are, the spiritual conception of them through the bhakti process itself. Okay, so that's the topic for this morning. See if there's some discussion in the room so the people online can send in their questions, unless we have some online already.
Maharaj, it is stated that the soul is like 1,000 sun, brilliant, as brilliant as like 1,000 of sun. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated. So again question is coming, because it is covered with so-called greed and lust mainly. And my question is how to overcome this and to become like a self-rejoiced, like a Atmaram, because they take pleasure in within.
Well, those are, you know the answer. The bhakti process. I'm looking at you, not him. Let's start with what's the Shikshastaka 1? How does it begin? Cheto Darpana March. So that's how that's the how. And you continue with faith and the covering becomes cleansed, and that which is beneath the covering or intrinsic in the heart of hearts becomes revealed. So that the attraction for Krishna, the desire to be in service to Krishna awakens, and the covering is gradually reduced. Or using a nice word, I like Bhaktisiddhanta's word, it becomes effaced, gradually indistinguishable. Okay? That's the process, bhakti process, starting with chanting. Here we are over here. What do we do without Parama Karuna? Has he gone traveling already? What?
Guru Maharaj, linking yesterday evening's class to this morning, as we are cultivating the qualities of sensitivity or empathy, how do we strike that balance or understand the statement you presented from Narada Bhakti Sutra? A pure devotee is indifferent towards what stands in the way of the Lord's service. So would you please comment on the indifference towards obstacles and also cultivating sensitivity?
Well, the indifference specifically is neither hankering nor lamenting. That is to say, from material platform, indifferent. So between me and Krishna, there's an obstacle. The indifference is, I know it's insubstantial and Krishna can help me. When I see it, I'm relying upon, I'm dependent. I'm relying upon Krishna to help me or help us overcome something that's an impediment or hindrance. But, we're all wearing masks. Almost all of us. What happened to your mask? Okay. So, COVID is a hindrance because so we're taking precaution. We're not, cavalier about hindrances. They're not, in that sense, indifferent, but it's not going to block bhakti. So please, Krishna, help me have the intelligence to reach you during these COVID times. So we take practical measures. But the indifference doesn't mean I don't care. The indifference means it doesn't check or block my bhakti. And if it's substantial, if it appears to be substantial, like Queen Kunti is praying, Krishna, please help me remove it. So that's not indifference in the material sense. It's a spiritual indifference. So let me help me overcome this. So that's how to understand it. Material versus spiritual.
You began your class saying, our goal is not to be voidist.
Thank you.
And I was thinking, although the goal is not to be a voidist, but then I'm not there yet. And
Okay.
so I have these voidistic tendencies in my heart. So,
All of us do.
So what's a way to identify them and then take steps to not be like a voidist?
Well, the light of trying to please Krishna, when that light goes on, then you can see those tendencies more clearly. And then you can not go towards those tendencies, but towards the tendency of Krishna should be pleased. One devotee somewhere in the world indicated a little light went on when they heard one class, and they said, I have an impersonal tendency. I want to numb myself to things that I find disturbing and hurtful. So I just kind of void out or numb myself. And I realize, that's not happiness. That's an impersonal tendency. So now what do you do when you see that negative feeling? You don't hit the delete button. You don't dive into it either or get attached to it. You recognize what it is. Knowledge and detachment is temporary. It's a feeling, and it's here today and gone tomorrow. And even if it stays tomorrow, then it's temporary. All things in this field of activity is temporary, and the mind is one of them. So detach. It is what it is. It's a feeling, and there's a behavior that's prompted that feeling. And there's a person from whom the behavior came, but that person is spiritual soul. So with knowledge, that can be detachment. That's one thing, and then in that detached, reflective space, you can go to what's going to be pleasing to Krishna. And if that light is on, you'll know what to do. You're more likely to know what to do, and you have good association that can guide you that has their light on, the bhakti light.
What's
That's our life. That's our life. Sadhu Sangha is our life.
What's like the core of voidism? It's that not to have desires? Or
No. The core is to desire in relation to Krishna. That was this reference of sadhana that Rupa Goswami says. And then this, that somehow or another think of Krishna. The reference in that case is Shishupal wasn't thinking of Krishna favorably, but sadhana has to think of Krishna favorably. How to please Krishna favorably. So, here's my impersonal tendency just to blank out when it's too much. So, I numb out. I go do dumb stuff just to numb out. That's what people in the world do. And then it gets worse. And there's more violence and more bad stuff and more, all those negative things. So that's a tendency. And go into a mode of good. This is, you've heard this before. Go into a mode of goodness space, a reflective space. Here's this tendency. This numbing tendency is coming again. The checking out tendency is coming again. There's times when I need to rejuvenate. I need to step back a few steps, or 10 steps, and reflect. And restore my Krishna connection. And then as that Krishna connection is made, you then make choices, make a list and make choices from that list that's favorable to Krishna and will connect you to Krishna. And when you're connected to Krishna, then you'll have more intelligence how to deal with whatever the thing was that was causing you to void out. So taking some steps back is prudent. Depends upon the scale of, the bad something, the unpleasant something, the harsh something. Okay?
Thank you.
Let's go online.
This is from Krishna Priya Devidasi. Guru Maharaj, you had referenced Bhagavatam 2:3:10, and in that verse, a kama sarva kama verse, there was a phrase uddharadi, a person with broader intelligence. Can you explain more? What are the qualities of such a person? And how is it different or similar to the buddhi, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 2:41?
She wants to know what is the meaning of Udaradi?
Yeah, can you explain it? What are the qualities of such a person?
The qualities of such a person. Well, it's the qualities of a Udara D indicates intelligence, and that means spiritual intelligence. Real intelligence is spiritual intelligence, and that's Bodhi. So the symptom of somebody that has Bodhi is they know, because Krishna gives them the intelligence, they know in circumstances of life how to navigate their way to Krishna. We're always making choices. We have free will. We're making some, minute free will. We're making choices. How to navigate our way to Krishna. So a symptom of the Udara D person is the path to Krishna is, if not super clear, at least the principle is never deviated from. That's a symptom. Udara D. And then progressively, different circumstances tell such a person how to act this way or that way or another way, or which is the most pleasing to Krishna way. That's the symptom. They never deviate from Krishna's shelter and being in the mood of his service. Then you can take a look at these other symptoms, like, chapter 13, Bhagavad Gita, text 8 through 12, and those are also symptoms. Gyan is symptom, it's quality, a quality of a person that has knowledge. So that's some of the Udara D symptoms. But the primary one is the one. It's right in the purport. Mai chananya yogina bhaktir avyabhicharini. That's a symptom of Udara D person. And how does it compare? It's just a more complete picture. Udara D is a more complete picture of someone that has a bodhi from 241. It's the same, it's just an expanded explanation of.
Christina McKee, Hare Krishna. If I want to please Krishna and feel like I have to compromise my feelings or thoughts concerning someone, a family member, to do it, how do I go about it while being authentic and true to myself?
The same answer. If the principle is pleasing Krishna, so you may act with a family member or someone close to you that if your heart says, I want to please Krishna, you accommodate what's pleasing to Krishna as opposed to your own sensibilities. That's the higher principle, is Krishna's pleasure. So that's, we get kind of mixed up because we're attached to our own idea of what happiness is and what our value system is. This goes back to the discussion yesterday, midday, the alignment topic. And the very foundation, the bottom of the iceberg is Krishna is to be pleased. Or this discussion is the heart of bhakti, is Krishna is to be pleased. And then I can align, I can forego, if I have this inclination, something, and there's a family member that, that irritates them, then I may, because I want to please Krishna, it's not just like making a business deal with the family member, and sometimes you win, sometimes I win. But it's, the pleasing Krishna. That's a higher consciousness place. And at least you can strive for that as best you can.
Yeah, just the last part of her question, which you may have already answered. Should I just focus on keeping Krishna at the center of all of our conversation?
Yeah.
This person does not respect my spiritual beliefs.
That's okay.
But is very intertwined with my child. When she is around, I naturally put up a guard to protect myself.
Yeah, natural. But you still keep Krishna at the center. You don't let intruders come in and trample over your garden. But you know, be respectful.
Okay, this is Sneha Vali Devidasi. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, I have a clarification question. You mentioned that until we have renunciation to material life, we cannot progress. My understanding was 2 points. First, as long as we're chanting faithfully, we will get purified and
Yes.
achieve perfection.
Yes.
Second, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga verse says that with bhakti, renunciation comes automatically.
But then what is that automatically? So Nityapriya and Snehavali, remind me to send both of you this automatically little essay by Burijan. Thank you.
Sarvabhaumadas, if one's mind wanders while chanting, which is pretty common scenario, then is it called abas or abas chanting or offensive chanting due to 10th offense through inattentive chanting?
It depends on whether you're trying to keep the mind under control or not. If you just let it go willy-nilly, then it's offensive. And if you're striving to overcome that tendency, then it's abas.
Chinmay Desai asks, I fear my preaching of Krishna consciousness to my parents, family, would turn them off. How can I make my family take up bhakti voluntarily? Please guide me.
Okay, easy. Be a good devotee. Achar will take care of your prachar. And if you consistently show ever increasingly exemplary achar, they'll smile. They'll think, whatever she's into, it's good. And then they may ask, what are you into? And then be really careful, don't say too much.
Archana Vaidya, Hare Krishna Maharaj, if we have sincere desire to progress in bhakti, for example, desire to study Bhagavatam or Gita, but somehow or other, due to lack of capacity, time limitations, children needs, it does not happen. What do I infer from this? What is this an indicator of, and how can I move beyond?
Well, Dridha Vrata, that's one of the things I wanted to include. In that section from 2.41 purport, Bhagavad Gita, Dridha Vrata, firm determination, is part of going beyond the bodily conception. We'll say it negatively. If you're still in the bodily conception, Dridha Vrata is not going to be fully manifest. So how do you get beyond the bodily conception? The process of Krishna Bhakti. So it sounds a little circular, right? But, the heart of Bhakti is pleasing Krishna. So that's what you need to do. And you go on with whatever you can. The acceptance, this is what you just expressed, is you're accepting that's your situation. But don't just be complacent. So, well, that's my situation. So you make a plan to go the next step. And whatever that next step is, make it doable, and then you do it consistently and have a celebration, and then take the next step. So I would suggest, for example, association with somebody that is a little consistent with reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. They have all kinds of reading groups, and join one. And then you'll do it, because you have that social obligation. You're a social person. You don't make commitments to people that you don't complete. And it's something that you want to do anyway. So join a reading group. That's the solution.
Uttama Bhaktadas, Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahmabhuta means right now we are digging the foundation. And although it's part of construction, but the real construction begins once the foundation is built and the ground is leveled.
Yeah. You got a plan, though. When you dig the foundation, it's not like, I don't know what's going to be up there, but I'm going to do the foundation. You have an idea what the building is going to be when you decide to make the foundation. So, it starts with the hearing, but don't overly analyze. You take the bhakti process as is given by our founder Acharya in his writings and teachings, and take it into heart, open the heart and let it go in. And then you move forward with the bhakti process, moving towards the Shuddha platform. Pretty simple.
And this looks like the last.
Yay.
His follow-up or another question. Can, quote, automatic be taken to mean that if the horse is going in the right direction, the cart is also destined for the proper goal?
That's part of it for sure. Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki Jai.